Hey there ladies, this is Jules. I wanted to share with you guys the Christmas side for my matte shape photo swap thing that I'm hosting, and details are on my blog. Um, I wanted to go through step by step on what I've done, so if you guys would just bear with me, and we'll get to do like almost every step. So this is part one. I'm just cutting out my shape, and it's at 5.5 by 5. And I want to use the Tim Holtz alterations on the edge die, and so I'm getting ready to cut that out. And there that is. And what I'm going to start doing here is just painting it. I'm going to use the Country Tan by Apple Barrel, and because I'm going to be doing both sides, I just kind of poured the paint right on top of it. So it's a little bit easier for me to just get it on the actual piece there. So it's kind of fun to me. I love painting. So once it's dry, what I ended up doing was just adding some vintage photo distressing to give it just a grungier look, a little bit more of a distressed look. And I'm going to change that. I'm going to show you that in a second. Here I am cutting out 1 by 1, 1 inch by 1 inch little chipboard tiles, and not quite sure what I'm going to use them for, but I had a feeling to do this because I wanted to add, I was thinking of something, so I'll show you guys what I'll do with that later on towards the end. Now this is part 1. I could not condense this into 15 minutes at all. That's why, and this is the third time I'm recording it, so hopefully it'll work out this time. So here I'm using burgundy, the color burgundy, on these little tiles, and it's the paint from Apple Barrel as well. I use a lot of Apple Barrel, but I normally get them when they're on sale. So I kind of paint the edges, and I do one side first, and then I go to the other side. And I'm going to show you there that it's all dried and ready to go. And one of my favorite things to do and to use is distressing, and using my emery board to do it. So here I'm using my emery board. And what I like to do as well is use the vintage photo distress ink. And I hope this is not going too fast for you guys, but I'm trying my best to get everything in. So I just distress the edges. Sometimes I tend to do a little bit too much. See, I'm comparing it there. And so I end up kind of rubbing the excess off, kind of, you know, grunting it up more, and like pressing the ink in and stuff. Now I want to cut my matte shape out. This is out of chipboard, and I want to use the Tim Holtz die for that that I just showed you there. And I'm going to put this insert in there so that the chipboard doesn't get stuck inside the die. So I measure what I want to cut out, and then I cut that chipboard to about that size to kind of save my chipboard. That's kind of how I make it stretch. There's my ornament piece. And what I end up doing with this is I mixed up 3 different paints, and I kind of flashed them out to you here really quick. And I apologize for that because I didn't really think that I was going to do the video this way, but I wanted to match that paper. It's by My Mind's Eye, and it's, I think, Christmas Jingle or Christmas something. Those are the paints. If you want to know exactly which ones I used, let me know. I can give you the information. So I mixed up those 3 paints to create this color, and it's a very light bluish green. So it has that ice, wintry color. I love this paint color, and I actually still have some more. I mixed up enough to use to do 2 coats on the ornament. And I'm showing you the chipboard because I'm like, I really like this color. So what I want to do is kind of keep that color there, the brownish, but I'm going to do, I'm going to show you here, that dry brush kind of a technique there. So what I do is I grab some paint with the brush, and I take some of the excess off on my craft mat. And that's just to kind of limit globs and too much paint. So here we are, that I'm just adding in the blue. And it's just dried brushed on so that you can still see some of the brown through it. And what you may not know is then since there's the distress ink that's on the edges, it kind of leaks when it's wet. When something wet goes on gets on it, it leaks out. So I have tiny bits of streaks of the vintage photo kind of around there. I wanted to do that whimsical kind of a look, like snow's falling. So that's why I was doing those lines. This is the stamp that I used because I wanted to do musical notes on my ornament. So here I stamped it with some fired brick distress ink and frayed burlap. I wanted some like a two-tone kind of a look. And I really like how it looked, but I realized that after a while, the paint started to absorb the ink so much that it started to get lighter and lighter and lighter. So what I ended up doing here is I changed my mind. After I distressed the edges and everything, I ended up covering it with paper. So still from that collection, from my mind's eye, I cut out the ornament shape again, used my Mod Podge, and put the paper on. Then you want to press it. If you have any kind of a flat round, if that makes sense, nothing with curves and stuff to press it out to get air bubbles out, it works best that way. I press it out and press it down on hard surfaces like that. So what I want to do with the shape, now that it's all dry and I distressed it with my file, down at the little holes down at the bottom there, I actually did distress it too. But so I sprayed some coffee glimmer mist on the pages, on those music sheets, and I wanted to tear it, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I need to know exactly where I'm going to be placing these papers. So I'm just tearing them in pieces, and I'm going to be putting this burlap piece towards the right side. So I want to see how much coverage I'm going to be um, covering with the burlap, and where exactly are the bare naked areas that I want to add the paper to. So I kind of have that sitting there. And yeah, so what I'm going to do is kind of looking and see where I can place all my papers. So I'm going to be using my um, vintage music sheet. They're actual hymnal pages that are just very old. So you have to be very careful with those. And I buy them from someone who's just a sweetheart. The link to her blog is on my blog. It's Katie Blue Arts. You can find some great stuff on her site and her Etsy. So I used some of that same My Mind's Eye paper, and I just cut them in pieces, and I kind of fit things down like a puzzle. So I just tore pieces up and placed them, and used since it's two-sided or double-sided, the paper is, the colors were just perfect, and it had the distress look already on it. So I just placed it down wherever I thought would fit. So there I have them all glued down, and I only use the Mod Podge for it. So the inspiration I got for just that particular look was from my Somerset magazine. You can see there, it looks like an ornament piece, actually, a vintage ornament piece. They use the music sheets and pieces of different designer paper, burlap. I was going to use that corrugated cardboard look, a certain shape, but I decided not to and use the Tim Holtz ornament die. But I really love how this looked, and see how around the entire edge, it's all distressed. I really love the grunge look. And that's kind of what I'm leaning towards more with a lot of my pieces. So you see that there's like flaps of paper kind of sticking out over. What I want to do is show you kind of killing three birds with one stone here. So I had already distressed it and inked the edges, but since there's paper that's hanging over, this is the easiest way for me to get a cleaner cut and to kind of get it like it was placed as one piece on this chipboard. So see how it's tearing there? I use my emery board and I just run it alongside the edges, and at the same time what it does is it cuts my paper off, it distresses the paper, and then it distresses the chipboard below it just a little bit more to kind of blend in the paper and the chipboard. I really love this look. Really, really do. And I love how the vintage photo, actually it's frayed burlap that I'm using here. I added that all the way around because I like that distressed look. So this is the burlap that I'm using, and I frayed the edges, just the two sides there. So I just kind of pull like 3 rows off. You just have to be careful there so you don't over pull. I love the frayed look. And those little strings, I save those because I use them later on. You can see that big pile there. I want to make my journaling spot. So what I do is got some craft paper and I folded it in half. I used the edge of my scissors instead of my bone folder, but I don't know why I did that. But if you'll notice here, I'm not fitting it completely over the ornament because I still want it. I want it to be like a booklet where you can open it. So I still want it somewhat attached. So you can see there, I'm just kind of making sure there's a space there as even as possible. And then I cut out my shape. But in order to make it fit behind the ornament, I need to cut this bottom piece off. So I end up just snipping it out and making the shape an oval shape, like an egg or a jelly bean. So the stamp set that I used is that the ornate something. I'll put it down on the. I'll give you the name for it. But I used that stamp set there from Inkadikadu, and I had started already to emboss the cardinal on the holly and berry branch. And I forgot to start recording to show you how I did it, but I did end up just stamping the rest of the snowflakes, and I wanted to at least show that. So I use clear embossing powder that's called Kaleidoscope because it's got different colors of fine glitter, powdered glitter in it. Really, really like that one. Another thing I wanted to do was use my tea dye tags. I wanted to incorporate that. So I grabbed my tea dye tags and I stamped Merry Christmas with clear embossing powder. He embossed it because I wanted the stain of the tea to show through, and it did. It's gorgeous. I love the way that it looked. And later on, I ended up doing a double layer, so I glued or Mod Podged another layer of the tea dye tags behind it to make it thicker. And here I'm using my Fired Brick Distressed ink because it has that beautiful red, and it makes the stamp of Merry Christmas pop. And I love doing this emboss resist technique. Love it, love it. So here I'm just pressing it out so that I'm getting the bubbles, the air bubbles out, and getting it all stuck together really, really good. So I use my Big Shot to do that, to kind of press it. And see how pretty the red is and stuff. It already has the two layers of the tea dye tags on there. So I'm going to cut those out. Here I'm attaching some Christmas tree charms that I got a while back from eBay. And there's my recycled burlap string, tying it around that. And on the ornament, I did use frayed burlap to distress it on the edges. So you can see that it has that coloration around the edges. I wanted to make some little poinsettias, and I have this die, and it's got pieces. So I wanted to use that very center piece there, the little flower. And I found this crepe paper. It's a 2-pack for $1. I found it on clearance at a really small pharmacy here in town. So I folded it and made 8 layers, and I wanted to make it a fluffy flower, a more dimensional flower. So what I did is just cut that out, and it actually, when it cuts, it kind of all sticks together in one piece. You can see here it's kind of stuck together. So what I did is I got my little hole punch and punched a little hole in the center. And I wanted to also distress it. So I had this little yellow brad to kind of help me hold it all together while I used my distressing tool. And I just inked it all up. And at the same time, I wanted to open it. I ended up spraying glimmer mist on it and moved all the petals and layers around to kind of make it uneven. You can see that. So I'm going to show you the rest of the video. I'll show you part 2, and this is as far as I got with this one. So I will show you part 2. If you can please come back and watch that, I would appreciate it. I'll catch you in a sec. Pretty.